Major windmills are sprouting up all around our region, but they're not what's making us a national leader in wind energy. It has more to do with our manufacturing expertise. More than 9,000 parts in a windmill, there's plenty of opportunity for companies in the supply chain. And the American Wind Energy Association says it's only going to accelerate. CEO Denise Bode joins us via satellite from New York City. Welcome.
Welcome to you too. I mean, Pennsylvania's doing fabulous this year for wind.
How's the wind blowing for your industry these days?
Well, you know, last year was tough times for almost everybody as we were recovering from, a real downturn in the whole economy. So demand for electricity was down all across the country. But we were actually able to add 14 new manufacturing facilities in the United States during that downturn. As I said, continuing the path to insourcing manufacturing into the United States from Europe and around the world. Adding new American jobs in those industries. And also, we added 25% of all the new generating capacity in the U.S. last year. And over the last 4 or 5 years, the total is over 35%. So we're delivering at the same pace in terms of new generating capacity as natural gas is. So in terms of being the answer to some of the serious questions that we're facing in the U.S. on can we deliver, if we reduce how much generation we get from some of the traditional fossil fuel sectors, or if we don't get nuclear power in place, as quickly as we'd like. Wind is already delivering right now.
So a lot of growth, but off of what base? What percentage of power in the United States is provided by wind right now?
Actually, if you look at all the 38 states that are producing wind right now, it's over 3% of all generation, and that's grown almost exponentially. And we're well past, when they first started scaling up nuclear power 20-some years ago. It took them much longer to scale up to the 20-some% they are now. We're ahead of the path of getting to 20% wind by the year 2030. That was projected in the Bush administration by the Department of Energy.
It's still a relatively small percentage here in Pennsylvania. I think it looked about 1/3 of 1% currently in terms of generation here.
Well, one of the nice things, though, is as you add demand, as you have put policies in place, and for a very short period of time, you've added generating capacity at a pretty rapid rate. Because generation usually are 20, 30-year plants, so and 20, 30-year investments, and you've added a significant amount of new generation in a short period of time, and that new generation, those policies are driving a virtuous cycle of attracting and insourcing manufacturing jobs to the state, because as you add generation, it attracts those manufacturing facilities to locate from Europe and around the world here to the U.S. and to actually grow American jobs and put Americans to work, and actually to create, products that you can utilize in the state of Pennsylvania, or you can even export, so you're making more money.
Well, and certainly here in what was historically been one of America's great industrial and manufacturing centers, we love all the parts inside a windmill.
Oh, yeah.
Probably a lot of potential for manufacturers throughout our region to supply into this industry.
Exactly. Well, you are one of the major new manufacturing hubs. We're growing so quickly, people don't know it. In the last 5 years, we've added over 400 new manufacturing facilities in the U.S., and the wind manufacturing sector is one of the fastest growing manufacturing sectors in the whole country. So it's really one of the bright spots of our economy. As everybody else is outsourcing jobs outside the United States, we're actually working to insource jobs in this sector and build new manufacturing, playing on the skill sets that have already been there in places like Pennsylvania, who've been making other kind of parts. This skill set is transferable to the U.S.
It seems like, looking over the map that you all sent out in advance of our conversation today, it looks like there's over a dozen manufacturing facilities in Pennsylvania making
Absolutely. Absolutely. Pennsylvania, as I said, is one of those major manufacturing hubs in the country. And you're growing wind power still. It's one of the good news stories out there. And as we face serious questions about other sources of energy production and generation. This is great because we use no water, the only energy source that really uses no water, so you don't ever have to worry about any pollution or side effects from that. You know, we have no waste, and the fuel is free. So, I mean, how great is that?
Well, it is so long as the wind blows, but what do we do about the times when it doesn't?
Wind is very reliable in that it's predictable. Wind scales up and scales down over a long enough period of time that the grid can adjust for that. Unlike some of the traditional generation sources, like you can't predict if a coal plant's going to go off. If it goes off and you've got a whole major plant going off unexpectedly, you have to bring up all these natural gas and hydro peakers to do it immediately. So it really can disrupt the grid. Wind, on the other hand, is very reliable, very predictable with good weather forecasting like we have now. It can actually balance itself as the grid is more robust and you have wind blowing in one part of the grid and not blowing in another. They balance each other out. And so that's why having a robust transmission grid is really important, and that's part of what we're doing too, is upgrading our grid for greater reliability.
So I guess that was my last concern. Is the grid really up to dealing with the intermittent sources of supply of things like wind and solar and things like that, or do we still have work to do to really make sure the whole portfolio of energy works together effectively?
Yes, it is up to that because it's been dealing with intermittency forever. I mean, every time you have a cold spell or a hot spell, you know, the grid operators have to deal with everybody turning on their heater or turning on their air conditioner. Industrials the same way. So you have a tremendous opportunity there to also use those same experiences in dealing with wind. And as I said, you know, if you have a major coal plant or nuclear plant go out, you know, it can take down the whole grid because it's unexpected. It's not predictable. So yes, we have work to do in making transmission better because much of the transmission grid was built, you know, 50 years ago, and so we do need to upgrade, not for the intermittency, although that's great to have a more robust grid, but because we need to make our grid more reliable because it's old.
All right, very good. Well, Denise Bode, good to hear so much wind activities happening here in our region, especially on the manufacturing side. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, one of the biggest players in the wind business, and it's based right here in our region. Stay with us.